AI is changing the world of insurance. We're going to talk about it with today's special guest, Awais Farooq. Welcome to the Artificial Intelligence Podcast, where we make AI simple, practical, and accessible for small business owners and leaders. Forget the complicated tech talk or expensive consultants. This is where you'll learn how to implement AI strategies that are easy to understand and can make a big impact for your business. The Artificial Intelligence Podcast is brought to you by Fraction AIO, the trusted partner for AI digital transformation. At Fraction AIO, we help small and medium-sized businesses boost revenue by eliminating time-wasting, non-revenue generating tasks that frustrate your team. With our custom AI bots, tools, and automations, we make it easy to shift your team's focus to the tasks that matter most, driving growth and results. We guide you through a smooth, seamless transition to AI, ensuring you avoid costly mistakes and invest in the tools that truly deliver value. Don't get left behind. Let Fraction AIO help you stay ahead in today's AI-driven world. Learn more and get started at fractionaio.com. So it's so great to have you here and connect with you, Awais. I know we had some technical issues, but we made it all work, guys, and everything's good now. I'm really fascinated by the approach because we often think about using AI customer face, like an AI instead of a doctor, an AI instead of a therapist, but using AI in claims processing and doing paperwork, which is the thing we all hate doing. I think that's really one of the best use cases. So how did that kind of become your area of focus?
Yeah, I know. Look, I've been in the claim space my entire career. It's been about almost 2 decades. And there's always a gap, right? It's a processing environment where you have a lot of different people looking at trying to get information on a particular event that's occurred, a situation where it's impacted someone's life. And it's a very human business, right? When you look at some of the other areas of claims, it's very transactional. But when you think about property and casualty, you're talking about people's homes, you're talking about people's cars, things that people use every single day. There's very high touch and frequency of trying to get information and figuring out, when am I going to get my car repaired? What's going to happen with this stain that I have in my ceiling, right? It's the biggest, worst thing that can happen. You don't know as a homeowner, what that means. Does that mean that your house is going to collapse? Or does it mean that it's just slight damage and it's just cosmetic? Or even if it's cosmetic, it bothers us because we look at it every single day. So it's really driven off of that and saying, how can you improve the customer experience of what people are feeling when they're transacting with other organizations, right? So when they're buying something for their home from Amazon, or they're going on a website and stuff shows up to their house within a couple of days. And then you go to the insurance process, you submit a claim, somebody's going to come out there in a couple of days, and then we will send you a check maybe a month, 2 months later for you to repair your home. So it's all about this instant response that now we as consumers are starting to get into. And that's it's fascinating to me, that it's slowly starting to trickle into the insurance industry. And there's a lot of work to be done.
So I kind of want to talk about the actual mechanics. So let's say you're in a car accident, your car gets damaged. There's all these questions, which is like, how much is it going to cost? How much of it do I have to pay? Do I have to get a loaner car, a rental car while they're repairing it? All of these things. And long time ago, the process was you had to wait for the person to come out and look at your car. And then eventually they became like some mechanics were authorized to give a real estimate. So you have to go to an approved auto shop. And I'm wondering now, can you take a picture and the AI can assess it? And then I start to think, what if you use an AI generated picture to trick the AI? Like, how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, 100%. Look, you're talking about this journey, right, that we've seen from handwritten estimates to now people going out there. You have virtual inspections where you can do a real time, hey, show me your car, what's happening, or submit your photos, and we'll run it through the AI, take a look at it. And then eventually you get to a point like the property, you're not going to be able to estimate every single thing, right? What you don't know is what you don't know. You don't know what's going on under the carriage. It's going to be the actual repair individual trying to open that up and saying, okay, there's more damage or there's less damage. But what that does, it gives you complete, clear access to what the extent of that damage is before it's exacerbated or before it's made worse than what it was. So I think we're in the state of, as consumers, trying to get immediate response. But on the insurance carrier side, it's also giving them an edge of saying, hey, we're going to pay what's right. So you're going to have less and less fraud of people. If you got rear-ended and you got a little bit of bumper damage, now you go in with a hammer and you try to push it in more or whatever the case may be, and you go into other areas. So there's fraud element to it as well. And then, of course, you get into the customer service experience, right? As soon as you know how much you owe, you should cut a check and move on. And I think that's what insurance companies are doing right now, which is fascinating because I think it's, if you know it's at least $500 of damage or $5,000 of damage, you owe that. And you getting that in front of customers' hands builds so much credibility with that consumer versus saying, hey, let us figure out what it's going to be and then we'll send you something. And things are always going to come up, right? And what you don't know is what you don't know. But with these AI models, you can start to predict, and you're putting in how fast were you going? Where did you get rear-ended by? Was it a Tesla truck or was it a small vehicle or was it a motorcycle? And all those things starting to factor up to saying, hey, we predict this estimate to be X amount.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Now that we can send the pictures to the AI, have that processing and start to have that quicker analysis, because the AI is very good at detecting something about this picture is weird. A couple of years ago, when my wife and I ran a hotel for a few years, one of our guests, as often happens when people visit Asia, rented a motorcycle, left braked it, which, if you don't know, causes you to flip off. It broke his arm in 13 places. Ooh. And I was like, that arm's never going to work again. He's not going to work. You can put it back together, but that's a lot of breaks in one arm. And I heard him on the call, the insurance company. He had like really good travelers insurance. They sent a private plane to pick him up the next day. And his doctor was like really famous. I recognized her. You don't recognize a lot of doctors. I was like, what? But I remember he's on the phone and they were like, were you wearing a helmet? He was like, yes, definitely. I was like, this definitely not. This guy definitely wasn't, because it's interesting. People sometimes they go on vacation. They go, well, gravity's not the same here. It won't hurt. Like getting hit by a truck here doesn't hurt as much. I'm like, oh, it hurts way worse.
It does.
So I just remember thinking about that, and it was really interesting. But he had such a good insurance, they didn't even care. But he hadn't hit his head. He hit his arm, like he put his arm out, whatever. So it was really, and that always sticks with me. It's like wild, but he had the right insurance and he hadn't hit his head. But there's so much in that process where people always, they want to tell the version of the story where it's the least their fault or whatever. It is interesting to think about someone hitting their car with a hammer to get more damage. I've never thought of that. I don't know why you would do that. I've only had to deal with insurance for car damage twice in my life. And I'm like, I just want it fixed. Let's just get it fixed as best as possible. But one of the big challenges is, and I wonder how much this relates, is like dishonesty in a mechanic. So I used to think, oh, if you go to the dealership, and then the dealership, and this is 20 years ago, told me I needed a bunch of things. And I Googled them and like none of them existed. They weren't real words. And I was like, oh, okay. So even there, they charge you more and they were like, oh, we got to fix this and this. Oh, yeah, this wire doesn't work. And it's like all words that aren't even real words. So what I wonder about is like, you have them take a picture of all the damage and the insurance. So then, and the car model, what they should be billing you for is the insurance. Do you think it will also cause a decrease in that part of the fraud from the mechanic or the like repair shops?
Yeah. Wow. Unpacked a lot of stuff there from motorcycle, and you gave me like a nostalgic moment. I personally had a motorcycle accident. I was wearing a helmet. I T-boned a deer, flew off the bike, blacked out, right? And I think it's a traumatic experience, right? And same thing, they do a CT scan on you, whether you no matter what, they want to make sure that your brain activity is appropriate. So even though you may not have had any damage to the brain, but I think just going back to that, and you brought that memory very visual for me. Thankfully, I did not break my bones in that many places, but I did have some injury in my foot and things like that. But look, I think going back to it, I would say 99.9% of the folks that have a claim, this is not off of any number. This is just my personal prediction of people are honest people, right? People just want to get back to their lives majority of the time. It's when you get into situations where people try to take advantage of it. There could be a group of folks that you call somebody, a repair person or something like that. And they're like, oh, insurance accident, don't worry. We'll cover your deductible. We'll make sure you don't have to pay a penny. And then you find the same consumer in a state of, hey, I'm having to pay more money out of my pocket because you fixed things that you did not get paid for by the insurance company, because the insurance company is investigating. And there's this also notion on the consumer side that the insurance companies don't want to pay. And having been in this industry, as I said, close to two decades, I have not worked for a single insurance company that said, we don't want to pay claims. It's a contractual obligation to make sure that they are paying for what was purchased. And I think a lot of times people don't read hundreds of pages of policies to say what is covered, what's not covered. and how that coverage is going to apply. And I think that's where the disconnect is, right? And consumers think the insurance companies are out to get them, and insurance companies thinking that this is going to be fraudulent or whatnot. Believe it or not, there's very minimal fraud. It's smaller in number, but higher in the amount of money that gets into it. So I think that's where a little bit of disconnect from both consumer and insurance carriers exists. But to your point, I think it's about making sure you're providing that service as fast as you can to make sure you're doing the right thing. Like in your case with your friend, having to have a private airplane coming in, picking them up and taking care of what they knew they needed to take care of, because you can't wait for that for days, right? He's going to be in pain and misery and things like that. And I think sometimes we underestimate the power of what really is going on. And you get to purchase insurance and you never see what insurance will do for you until you need it. So your friend may have had that insurance for a decade and he never needed anything out of it. But at the same time, it's when he needed it, they really showed up there.
One of the things that's really challenging for the consumer is to figure out the right ratio. A lot of people have the wrong insurance. Like there's that famous story of the 10 biggest financial losses in Vegas were all things they weren't insured of. Like the tiger attack, they were insured for the tiger to attack the audience, not the magicians, things like that. So it's very hard to predict. And so for a person who's looking at all these different insurance companies, all these different variables and like how much coverage we need, what are the right scenarios, it's very complicated. Because they think, how much can I afford? What's the right thing? What's the possibility of the scenarios? Do you see a place where AI can help people to make that decision? Because if you go to the websites and how people choose a plan, they're always going to recommend whatever's the best affiliate commission for them, unfortunately. There's a financial incentive. But if you could take an artificial intelligence that doesn't have that financial incentive, can it help people to navigate? Because a lot of people have like just the wrong type of insurance, like the number of people in California who didn't have fire insurance, right? They had earthquake insurance because earthquakes are quite common there. It's always these different things. Like, because the best thing for AI is like large data analysis, it can help you to plan about what's the most likely thing to happen to me. Do you see that as something coming down the pipeline?
I think it's in works, right? I know of a couple of companies that are in stealth mode trying to do a little bit of work on that consumer piece of educating and providing some support through AI to saying, hey, let us build a portfolio for you. Let us figure out what you need at what stage of your life. Right now you have a kid. What should you be focused on versus you just graduated from college and it's your first car, or this is your first home, and you have 3 homes, right? In different locations. It's not going to be all the same. And I think there's more and more products that are coming out, and AI is being very helpful in that space of trying to predict and help you mitigate. Look, we as humans, we have existed with or without insurance, hands down, right? I think where it starts to challenge is when we collect things and when we have valuable assets, or even if it's people around us. And I think we start to recognize, what would that mean if you lost it? I see you have a bunch of guitars back there. If you had you probably have a really cool guitar back there that you wanted for your entire life, and it's worth a lot to you and a lot of money that you paid to buy it. And I think, what would happen if you did not have the right amount of coverage? I think it's assessing yourself and saying, look, how much can I take on? And every time when you're talking about insurance, there's always an element of self-insurance, right? Whether that's through a deductible or self-claimed risk. What are you willing to take? The insurance company will take the risk for you and they'll ask you for a price, but then you yourself can take risk as well, knowing that you will lose that thing and you may not have coverage or full coverage. And I think it becomes very tricky, and there's no one answer for everyone. It's an individualized thing. Like when you go to Amazon, if you had a baby, they're only going to show you all the things about babies, right? Or if you're into golf and you search a couple of golf clubs, and it's always going to show you the latest clubs that they have, or the bags and everything else that goes along with it. And I think that's how insurance is going to become, where you're going to have this client segmentation of what is your audience looking for? What is their profile looking as they progress in life? And I think Gerber, believe it or not, does a very interesting thing. They offer life insurance as well. And they recognize, hey, you had a newborn and you should buy life insurance or whatever the case is. And the dealers are starting to pick on this and saying, you just purchased a vehicle. You probably are going to need insurance. So we have our own insurance agent right here. Let's get you before you walk out the door to be able to have insurance and things like that. So I think it's more about being in front of being in front of the people to help them navigate through this, because most people see insurance as money that they're just throwing down the pipe or down the drain. And it's very expensive. As you collect more and more assets, you're paying a lot of that, right, for your thing. And I think it varies for you. So if you're willing to take more risk, you may be okay with paying a premium of 1% of your net worth, versus if you're not willing to take enough risk, you'll pay up to 5-6% of your net worth and saying, no, I want to make sure if something were to happen to me or something were to happen to the things I own, I want them replaced.
Yeah, it's funny you brought up the guitars. These are actually trash. It's like a $60 guitar and a $100 guitar for my kids, because I approach risk management that way. Because they're like, if you buy me a guitar, Dad, I promise I'll play it. I'm like, that's why it's covered in dust. That's why it's on my wall. It's like, played it once. But I'm reminded of this story when I was in high school and my friend went to buy drums. Like, you can have drums for this price or cheaper drums with cases. And it's like the smart kids buy the cheaper drum with the case. But economists, like the reason economists always get everything wrong is because they always assume everyone makes logical decisions. And the best decision themselves, it's like, yeah, I've never met anyone like that. Everyone buys what they want, not what they need. So people are very bad at risk management. Like, I have my approach to it, which is cheaper guitars. So if I lose them, okay. So that's it. I really am interested in risk management. As someone who does consulting, I often talk about how the projects I take, risk management is a huge part of it. I look at how much money do we get up front versus how much money in the back end if the project works out. And so I always look at those ratios. And a lot of people, that's where a lot of new entrepreneurs and new consultants kind of mess things up, is that they look all at the upside, not the potential downside, which is a poor part of risk management. So because people are illogical actors, that's what I'm wondering if AI can step in the gap and help them to make a more informed or logical decision, because it's the same thing where people buy the thing they're excited by without thinking about how I need a cheaper version so that I can get the case or get the protection to decrease the risk of something happening. So do you think that's an area where we might start to see more in the future, just because of the challenge of knowing what's the right insurance package for me and why should I do it? What is my risk? And does my risk profile change? And what's based on my income and based on my things? And what do I care about? There's a lot of complexity there. There's a lot of math because there's so many insurance companies, so many types of policies. Do I want life insurance or term life insurance? Do I want this? Do I want to cover that? And it's like, now we're seeing like, this is not me, but a lot of people have like pet insurance. I'm like, no, I have real kids. So it's like different. I have 5 kids. So I have a different approach to it. But you see that decision-making calculus, and it's like the thought of insuring, I'm like, it's cheaper to get a new dog to get insurance, which a lot of people think that's horrible sounding, but it's your perspective. Where are you on the spectrum? Right. So that's kind of one of my questions is for people that struggle with the decision-making calculus or they're overwhelmed by information. As if I said to you, recommend a camera to me, and you go, here's my 5 favorites. I go, that's not what I said. Just tell me which one to buy. Do you think there's something in there?
Yeah, I think, look, to your point, I think it's very difficult to make decisions on figuring out how much risk you want to take, right? As we think we want to take a lot more risk than what we're able to handle, because you only recognize what you risked until something happens. If nothing happens to it, like it is what it is. Like, right. It's you're going to go through this phase of having something that impacts your life in a way. And I think as you were speaking, some of the things that came to my head is, how do we go through this decision factor of what do we insure? How do we insure it? How much risk do we take? And I look at it and I give this example of where I think AI is going to go. Is it's going to be Jarvis from Iron Man. When we get to that level of understanding of where we have our own profiles, where we have our own companion that knows things about us based off of what we share with it and what it shares with us, it's going to evolve. That's what's going to evolve the space. Right now, we're more conversational. We're asking it things that come up to our mind, and if you think about the brain activity, the amount of things that go through our brains is insane. The number of thoughts that go through it is, okay, I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to go travel here. I have to purchase this. And I'm thinking about saving for these things, whatever it may be. And when you have a personalized experience through digital technology that's understanding you better than you understanding yourself, because you're just blurbing out random thoughts as you're going through the car. And I give this example of, current AI at the moment is more of a GPS. When you're plugging it in and you're going from point A to point B, and it can predict, hey, this is the fastest route, you should take this, and this is what you need to do. But what it doesn't recognize is, you like coffee and it is 10 a.m. and you haven't had your coffee because you didn't tell it you haven't had coffee. So you make a detour and you go to a coffee spot. Or you do more of a scenic route versus the fastest route at this point, right? Because you don't have to get there till 11 o'clock or whatever the case is. It's starting to pick those things up and just recommending it to you. But that user experience has to be so smooth. So it will need to be something that understands you and your transitions in life, your behaviors, your reaction to things, and how willing are you to be able to take a risk in certain places, right? If you never want a bungee jump, right? If you that's something, let's say you train an AI and say, I never ever want to take any risk. It jots it down. It's never going to recommend an adventurous sport where you're diving off of an airplane. But at the same time, if something has changed in your life where you've faced your fear of heights and you're like, oh, you know what, I'm willing to give it a try. If you never tell it that, you're never going to understand that. You can predict the fact that, hey, humans go through this curve of being fearful of things and then facing their fears and overcoming those. But it changes for everyone. It's something that's the things that are in our brain that we cannot translate of why we feel certain things, of how and when and where we feel them. I think that's a little bit of the gap, but it's going to be closer as we engage more with technology. Excel, Word, you look at all the Microsoft products, they are where they are as a result of the feedback that they've received from customers, right? They said, hey, I wanted to be able to do more than just add 2 plus 2. I wanted to be able to look up stuff in a different table in Excel, for example, or I want to be able to consolidate all this information. Excel didn't come out with a pivot table right off the bat, right? It didn't come off with a lot of those tools that exist today, or slicers and things like that, where you can start to go so deep into the data. So I think it's going to be that feedback that the technology is getting back and saying, this is what humans truly need, once again, versus what they want. What we want is somebody else to do everything for us. What we need is for us to do the things that make the most impact into our lives and what we're intending to do, which is that, are we trying to get back time that way we can spend with our family, or are we trying to get time so that way we can increase our value in the stuff that we do?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because I always wonder, it's like AI can either make things a lot better or a lot worse. And I try to be on the hopeful side of things, which is like, it allows us to get your claim paid out faster, decrease the amount of fraud, give you that better experience. So you spend less time worrying about, am I going to be able to get to work tomorrow? That's like the positive direction. I think that like increasing human interaction, because the AI does the boring stuff, is the good direction. And we see there's these two directions, right? One direction is, oh, AI is going to handle my social media and do all the phone calls and basically replace human-to-human connection. And I hope that this leads us in that other direction, which is that it's an assistive tool and that we actually have more human-to-human communication, better experience. We spend more time doing the things we love because AI will do all this. Because one of the challenges, right? Like you have to fill out all the insurance claim form. But if you can explain to an AI what happened and then it can translate it into the form, take a picture of all the parts. Because it's one of the things I always find interesting. It's like you rent a car and you have to go around it and say all the things that are damaged. That's really hard. So common to miss something. And that's one of the wildest things. And so if you didn't notice a ding before and you're like, was it there before? It's like, I don't know. I'm not an expert checking car panels. So if you scan it with an AI, now that kind of solves that problem. So I think a lot of good things. And I think that this is very interesting. I think a lot of people are going to find this interesting. For people who are interested in kind of stuff you're talking about, your approach to insurance, like maybe a better world, where's the best place they can find you online and see the cool things that you're doing?
Yeah, LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I think it's a great platform. Reach out to me, share your ideas, thoughts with me, and give me feedback on what you think about the stuff that I see. I'm passionate about building the future of claims and how we will interact, whether it's voice or anything else. To your point, I think it's all about making sure that we create that human connectivity, right? It's like that should be our end goal. Our end goal should not be that we're just taking a seat back and not interacting with anybody, and robots are talking to each other and they're having transactions with each other, and we're just in the middle of it. We are human and we need to interact with other humans to be successful. And there's something about shaking a hand, looking somebody in the eye and making a promise and saying, yes, I will do this for you. You can do the same thing, and AI will promise you and it will do it, which is great. But there's just a little sense of disconnectivity of, hey, does this person understand me when it needs to understand me, right? And you go through these ebbs and flows. I feel like technology is going to become so good that it's not going to give us disappointment. And maybe we need disappointment to then recover back, right? You need this loop of going up and down. And I think everybody looks at it that we want rainbows and roses all the time. But the reason where we succeed is actually when we fall and we start to lift back up and we say, hey, thank you for being there for me. Thank you for helping me when I needed somebody the most. And I think it's a double-edged sword of where you look at it and you say, AI can do all those things. Hands down, it can do it. But I think in today, where I'm at currently and looking at it and saying, can it do that? I don't think I could feel the same way if I spoke to Jonathan directly versus speaking to Jonathan AI. I think there's something about that, right? And I think Jonathan gives me reactions and he's giving me some cues of, hey, you're saying the right thing or you're saying the wrong thing, versus the AI. I could train it to say, pep me up. And I was just at a conference and they did that. Is okay, I need a pep talk, and ChatGPT came up with all these things and said, oh, you're great. You can do this and you can accomplish this. This is what you need to give the message to young leaders. And it was phenomenal. You walk out of that, you're like, wow, I'm inspired. This is great. I'm a perfect person. But then you don't recognize the faults in you, and you just start to create this sense of personality that you are this greatest person. But then, we do have to become better. It's all about improving yourself over the course of your life. So
that's really interesting. I think that's amazing. I know people are going to love this episode. I'll make sure to link to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes or below the video on YouTube. Thank you so much for being here again today, Awais, for an amazing episode of the Artificial Intelligence Podcast.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for having me. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Artificial Intelligence Podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss another episode. We'll be back next Monday with more tips and strategies on how to leverage AI to grow your business and achieve better results. In the meantime, if you're curious about how AI can boost your business's revenue, head over to artificialintelligencepod.com/calculator. Use our AI revenue calculator to discover the potential impact AI can have on your bottom line. It's quick, easy, and might just change the way you think about your business. While you're there, catch up on past episodes, leave a review, and check out our socials.